But you know what we can depend on, Brian Last?
I have no idea, no.
We can depend on Brian Cage to bring down the level of in-ring work no matter who he's involved with. I thought this is going to be faint praise. This was the best Brian Cage match I've ever seen, but because it was against Bryan Danielson, it was one of the crummiest Bryan Danielson matches I've ever seen. It's Danielson and Cage, and at least it's a heel that Danielson has to fight. Remember, he's got to win every week or he doesn't get the title match with MJF, and MJF is now, as we mentioned, that it might have been a good thing first with good old take a shit first week. It might have been a good thing if MJF was actively encouraging heels to win this thing for him so he doesn't have to face the guy. And Prince Nana's there, so you got a manager, even though they haven't utilized Nana. I've never heard him speak yet on any of these programs. And he doesn't really interfere. He might wave and distract every once in a while. So they haven't established who he is, why he is, what he's about, so that he can be of benefit to anything. But basically, Danielson did the best he could. Cage, for all the various reasons we always say, Cage is just rotten. But in the finish, Cage tries to buckle bomb Danielson, but threw him sideways into the ropes with the back of his head first. That's the thing you always want to do with a guy that's had concussion syndrome. And then hit him with a power bomb, and then went to power bomb him again, but Danielson sunset flipped him out of the second one, 1, 2, 3. But immediately, of course, here comes Cage and Prince Nana get in the ring to get on Danielson for heat, like in almost every match on this program. And again, that's another reason why. Who is that guy kicking Bryan Danielson? The commentators say his name is Prince Nana. What's he the prince of? And what the fuck's going on? Can he speak? Is he a mute? Nevertheless, Cage kicks like a girl or Tom McGee. You pick one or the other. But here comes MJF down the ramp, and immediately the intensity picks up. People start paying attention. And MJF has a whole nother demeanor to him. He goes to the audio table and he's throwing shit around like he don't give a fuck. He's not working cleaning it off. He shoves a guy on his ass. He's jerking shit around. He gets in the ring. He throws the chair in the ring, rather. And it just the way he's carrying himself and the intensity that he looks like he has, you can tell shit's business just picked up. So they do the deal where they get a chair and Cage puts the chair on Danielson's arm and shoulder and runs it into the ring post, and boom, so Danielson's selling his bad arm, bad shoulder. And Cage rolls him in and gives him to MJF. And then MJF, he he takes his jacket off, and everybody's got the attention all on MJF, and he mounts Danielson and throws punches to his head like a man, not windmilling flipper fucking bear paws to the vicinity of his head like the rest of these assholes, but throwing punches to his head like a man, not the sissy boy slap fight. And then he's going to go to Pillmanize the arm. Obviously, the angle that Steve Austin, Brian Pillman did 25 years ago, that's where the term has come from, where you slip the guy's arm or leg inside the chair and then come off the ropes or whatever with a big stomp on that, and you're trying to break the arm. Well, Cage is holding Danielson down on the mat. The chair's on his arm. MJF goes up the second turnbuckle. He's going to jump off, and here comes our friend Take a Shit. And he hits the ring, and MJF immediately bails and runs off, and old Take beats up Brian Cage and saves the day. I love the angle. There were two things wrong with it, and I will explain both. And this is in the interest of being constructive. Because, like I said, the match was so-so, but it accomplished the point. Danielson beats a big heel and continues his winning streak, so MJF tries to come out and help and do something to get rid of this guy. there were two things wrong with the angle. Number one is kind of accepted these days, and Brian, we've talked about it. It was a sports entertainment type of angle in the idea that nobody tried and failed to help before Take a Shit did. There was no bell ringing. There were no referees or security or job guys. There was no human intervention for quite some time about this heinous attack, or even concern past the announcers before Take a Shit suddenly comes in and makes a save. So not only does it look obviously set up that it would take that long for anybody to come, but also you've lost the ability to build the tension and to build the drama in the building and the scene of chaos, because if your first rescue attempt succeeds, well, that's great. Somebody saved the day, but goddamn, if you've got a guy hanging off a cliff and there's multiple people trying and failing to get him off, to get him back up before somebody does, well, you've increased the tension, right? But that's an accepted form of, wrestling today. It just happens, especially in the WWE. But use Prince Nana with a slapjack. Play King of the Hill. He's right inside the ropes. You got to try to come through the ropes to help save Danielson from these other fucking guys. And there's a guy that's got the ground on you, got the height on you. You got to get through the ropes. And he's got a slapjack. It works when you have a riot. So anyway, the second thing, and this is more psychological on my part, but see what you think about it, Brian. You remember what happened. Cage is the one holding Danielson down on the mat with the chair around his arm. MJF, to make sure that he's the heel that gets the credit, the heat for the attempt. He had the intent, even if he didn't do it. I can hear somebody saying it now. Even if he didn't jump off the ropes, he didn't get a chance to, but he had the intent to. That's why MJF gets that heat, right? That's what some people would say. But he was the first one to run. And therefore, when Take was kicking the shit out of Cage, MJF was already to the entranceway and out of the picture. What about if MJF had put the chair on Danielson's arm and then sent his stooge, Brian Cage, up to the top rope? Say, you're 250 pounds. Jump off the top rope on this fucking chair. I'm paying you. And that means that MJF is the one holding and Cage is the one going to the top. When old Take a Shit runs down the ramp, all he has to do is slide under the bottom rope and stand up to the immediate threat, which is the guy on the top rope, and grab Cage and give him a big slam off the top, throwing him into the middle of the ring, which when fucking MJF sees that happening and sees Cage flying at him, MJF rolls immediately out of the way to the fucking far neutral corner. Cage takes the bump on the other side of Danielson because he's cleared him, and now Take a Shit runs and hits the ropes and does the fucking spot where he ends up knocking Cage out of the ring. Cage takes his big bump to the floor. MJF is coming from behind Take to get him, but then Take turns around fired up, and now the only people in the ring that are up on their feet and visible to the people are Take a Shit and MJF, as MJF puts the fucking brakes on, puts his hands out, whoa, 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 kicks his feet up, falls on his ass, and then rolls out and takes off. And then Take a Shit, instead of chasing him, turns down to see about Bryan Danielson, who's still laying there on the mat, and now the doctor is sliding in also, and you've separated that. But what you've done is you've made MJF the last thing that people fucking see. You know, when instead of Cage was the MacGuffin here, the red herring, he was just the stooge that was doing the evil intent. So he's the one that takes the bumps and gets beat up. But then MJF is the one you see, and all the attention is on as he puts the brakes on and like a chicken shit rolls out and runs off. And that's the last thing you leave in those people's mind. Take a Shit ran MJF off as he was about to cause Bryan Danielson to get his arm broken. Does that make more sense to you?
The way you just laid it out made a lot more sense.
It's just a little thing, but people's minds, they remember the final thing. That's where when some of these finishes are so overbooked, there's a good point in them somewhere, but the good point gets lost by the time everybody gets finished doing their shit and gets the fuck out of the ring. Anyway, nevertheless, in the back, immediately after the break, the doctor was there and Renee Moxley-Good came in to see about Bryan's shoulder and his arm, and the doctor is saying, and Doc Samson was okay in this. Not a professional television personality, but it's good to have a real doctor saying shit like this. But Danielson was fired up. I'm not too hurt to wrestle, and I've, wrestled with this and that and the other thing. He had good emotion. He's coming to MJF. He's going to expose MJF. He's going to show what a fraud he is, blah, blah, blah. The match was so-so. The angle afterwards and the promo nicely built to this big title showdown we're about to see soon. Did I miss anything in this segment?
No, I think you got it all. It did hit me watching this that Brian Cage would have been a good fit for the Spirit Squad. Kind of has that male cheerleader kind of movement in the ring, but...
Oh, boy. I think Tom McGee is a more apt simile. But, anyway...
Did you read that Brian Cage is putting out feelers? His contract's coming up. He's putting out feelers to WWE. I read that somewhere.
Did you read that Brian Cage is putting out feelers and WWE is putting them back?
No.
They said, no, thank you. We don't want any more feelers from you. Thank you.
Go feel yourself.
Go feel yourself. We're fine. Good Lord. Well, maybe they'll put him on NXT and we won't have to see him anymore.